No one's quite sure just how many Pacific Islanders arrive in New Zealand every year. Surprisingly, the Departments of Immigration, Statistics and Island Affairs were unable to give us an accurate figure. But it seems a reasonable estimate would be that so far this year, about 9,000 islanders have arrived in this country, the vast majority of them on 3-month work permits. The number of islanders now living permanently in New Zealand is believed to be about 60,000, of which 40,000 are in Auckland. Every plane arriving at Auckland has its full quota of new arrivals. Wide-eyed and a little bewildered, they have very little idea of what to expect here. Many speak only limited English, have no experience of urban life, and carry most of their worldly possessions with them.
Olele, and welcome to Kumi Funua, a platform focused on highlighting our grandparents and their journey from Tonga to New Zealand. Ko kuingo wa ko Ezekiel, peo kuo lele mai me Maufanga. Today I will be sharing the story of my grandpa Soane Foliaki. Grandpa, can you please share with us a little bit about your family background, your mum and dad and siblings, and where you grew up in Tonga?
Okay, so my name is Soane Foliaki. I come from the village of Maufanga, originally from Folaka, and my mum is from Fasi. And I was born in Tonga. I'm about to be 65 in September. So we came here in 1969 to New Zealand. I was 10 years old. But before that, I lived in Tonga, and there's 5 of us. And my older sister is Lita. Then I have an older brother called Neti, Uncle Neti. And then myself, and then I've got 2 younger brothers, Pinosi, and my youngest brother's Alo. They were born in Tonga, like the rest of us, before we came to New Zealand. We went to primary school in Tonga. I was about to start at Upfor College in Maufanga. We're all Catholic, so we go to the Catholic schools. And then my parents decided we were going to come here for a holiday. So we came here, I remember it was November 1969. And I couldn't wait to get back to Tonga to start at Upfor College. But when we got here, after a couple of months here, the parents decided that we were going to live in New Zealand, to go to school here, that we weren't going back to Tonga. I was pretty sad about that because I missed all my friends and my cousins. But so I ended up going to primary school here in St. Mary's in Ellerslie right here. I was at Standard 4. I remember my first day at school, they asked me what my name was, and I said my name was Soane, and they told me that meant John, so they started calling me John. So I went through the whole of school and university being known as John Foliaki, because that's what the nuns named me when I came to New Zealand. But my real name is Soane. Life in Tonga was all right. I enjoyed it. You're young, you don't know any better. You don't know what you're missing. But we walk to school every day. We walk back from school. When it's raining, you get wet. You're barefooted going to school. There's no shoes and there's no gumboots and keep you dry. No raincoats. It was just part of growing up in Tonga. But our home back in Tonga is one road back from the water, the coast. So about 80 meters back is the second road behind, and it's called Salote Road. So we lived on Salate Road. So it runs all the way to town, or runs all the way deep into Maufanga. And most days after school, we would just go and swim. And we swim at Whaua Wharf. It was deep water, and it was very clean back then because there wasn't a lot of boats. So we just ran from home and dived into the water and swam every day and get up with our friends and just come back to, walk back home. So we had a lot of fun growing up there. And then we came to New Zealand, and our life was completely different. I remember going to the swimming pool. The first time I dived in, I nearly broke my neck because I thought I was in Whaua. I didn't realize the pool is only about this deep, but I soon learned not to do that again. And again, we walked to school, walked back. We had to have umbrellas, and we didn't have umbrellas, but we're supposed to, and raincoats to keep us, dry from the wet weather of New Zealand. It was we were really shocked when winter came because it was so cold. Tonga's just warm and hot all around the whole year.
Yeah.
It's a completely new experience coming to New Zealand. My dad was working as a medical doctor in Tonga, and he must have been around about 45 years of age, and he said he needed to stay in Tonga and work because he was going to get his pension. So we ended up staying in New Zealand with just our mother and our siblings. And that was a really, really hard time for my mum because we were still very young and she had to raise us by herself while my father was in Tonga, and we would see him maybe once a year. And, we didn't have a car for 5 years, and we caught the bus everywhere. And when we went shopping, if it was nearby, like we were up near Green Lane, if we walked here to Ellerslie, there'd be us kids and we would carry all the shopping like this and walk all the way here and walk all the way back home. That's just the way it was. We didn't know any better. And so it was tough times for us and my mum especially. And then my dad retired in Tonga, I think he was 50. So it was about 5 years later he came to New Zealand and he started working again for another 15 years before he retired. And I think we bought our first car when he arrived here, but we couldn't fit the whole family in. It was just a small little car, so only some of us rode. The whole family couldn't ride in the car together, but at least we could go and they could go and do shopping without us catching the bus and carrying all the shopping back. But my older brother and I, we went from St. Mary's Primary to Ellerslie Intermediate right here in this area here, and then on to Penrose High School. And when my father arrived, the rest of our siblings, they all went to St. Peter's College, back to the Catholic Church school. But it was too late for my brother and I. So, that was life. Yeah, there was nothing fancy. We eventually we managed to buy a home. We were renting before that. I remember when TV came in, we had a black and white TV, no color, black and white. And then we got color. We didn't have color. We were 5 years later, we would get a color TV. So we were kind of behind in everything, eh? And then, we finished school and ended up at university. I went back to Tonga. I went back to Tonga 1 year and taught at Upwell College at St. Mary's. That was probably the best job I've ever enjoyed in my life. When I came back to go to university, I decided to do law. I thought it would be a good job, and I thought it would be good to earn enough to provide for your family. And it has, but I'm not rich or anything like that. But so I finished my studies and I'm working. And I work as a lawyer at the Community Law Centre. And our job is to give free legal representation to all those people who need lawyers but can't afford it. They don't earn enough money. So that's more or less my life. I'm married and I've got 4 kids, and Yeah, I have 2 grandchildren, you and your brother, and that's about it.
Can I hear more about your dad? Because I've heard about his
My dad, your grandpa,
medical.
he was one of those very serious men, very determined sort of a guy, and he went. He finished up for O, but he was good at school, and he wanted to study overseas. So he went to Adelaide College after that, and he got the scholarship from Adelaide to get to Fiji, and he got to Fiji School of Medicine, and he studied medicine there, and became a doctor from Fiji. I remember he complained a bit because they recommended that he should be brought here to New Zealand to carry on studying, but he didn't get a government scholarship. The government didn't send him, and he was too poor to pay for himself to come here. So that was the end of his education. But he was just a hard-working man, and he was always doing something from the church. I remember we were at this little village. I was probably about 8 or 7. We're in Lapaha. And in the evenings, he would hop on his bicycle, and he rode to Kolonga, because he had to take the choir practice in Kolonga, which is a village further out near the end of the island before New Tohua. And he would do things like that for his choir practices, you know. And he was really, really one of these whakapoto-poto guys, you know. He never bought a car. He rode a bicycle to work. All that time he was working, right until he retired, he never bought a car. And he was saving all his money to, I don't know, he was thinking ahead, I guess. But I know that when we were here, they came here for leave in 1959, and he took out an insurance policy, and they returned to Tonga, and he kept paying this policy from Tonga while riding a bicycle. And then when we came in 10 years later in 1969, we were renting for about a year, and then he cashed in his insurance policy, and we had enough deposit to buy a house to get in the week. So we were paying a mortgage from a house. So we were luckier than most. We managed to get a house, but only because he had this foresight in his mind to save from Tonga and pay by paying insurance. So, and he became. He was one of the leaders of the Catholic Church in Auckland. You know, at a time where migration, lots and lots of Tongans were coming in, and we needed a bit of stability within the Catholic community and things like that. So he and a number of other different people, older people, were very, very good at building up our community and keeping us very much together. But that was him. That was his life.
Can you share with us the reason behind why and how you came to New Zealand?
How? We came on a plane. Is that what you mean? No, I know what you mean. Yeah, I remember hearing my dad saying we were, he didn't know whether we were going to do well at school or we were not going to do very well. And he knew that if you weren't good at school, it'll be hard for you to find work in Tonga, to find a job. And if you did find a job, the pay would be very, very poor. If you got married and had children, it'll be really, really difficult to support a family in Tonga. So the idea was, better get the children to New Zealand. They can go and study. And if they're not good at school, then at least they can find a job, look after themselves and their family. But that's not an unusual story. That story is about the same for all the Pacific people that came here, usually always for the same reason, for better opportunities for the family, especially the children at that time. Oh, if you want to know how we came here, we came on a plane. And that was a really, really freaky experience in Tonga. I think it was called Fiji Airways. It was a propeller plane, and we came to Fiji. And we landed, I think it was Nausori Airport. Then we had to transfer from there to Nandi, and it was the most scariest flight I've ever had. You know, people were praying because the plane was going up and down like this. There were some Catholic nuns there who were doing the rosary because we all thought we were going to die, but maybe that was normal back then. But when we hopped off at Nandi, it was a jet plane. And when you grow up in Tonga, you know, a truck was like the biggest thing you would see. And then all of a sudden you look up and there's this huge jet plane like this, and you're just freaking out and you're going, wow, you know. Scary too, there was a lot of noise. And yeah, we hopped on that plane and we got here. I remember my mother had sold us some clothes to wear. And there were some shorts, you know, and we had Aloha shirts. And it was November, but when we got off the plane, we were freezing because we had shorts and Aloha. And the shorts, you know, our mum thought she was really good, but all it was is just material for the shorts and just elastic around. You look really kind of pretty sad. But yeah, that was, I remember that when we came off, we were pretty cold. And we went and stayed at Auntie's for a while before we went and rented, before we eventually bought the house. Yeah.
Do you remember any struggles that you faced when you came to New Zealand?
Yeah, just like what I talked about, like, you know, I see you kids like, you know, you don't walk anywhere, you get driven everywhere you want to go, you get driven by your mom or your dad on a car, and, you know, I'll tell you, we would, for an example, in the holidays, all the kids go to the swimming pool. So we were living at Alice, just near Green Lane, and the pool's over in Panmure, it's Swimmerama. And we would walk from Alice to Swimmerama, and we had a little bit of money to buy just like a bag of chips. And then when we finished swimming, we would walk from Swimmerama all the way home, just eating our chips. And it would be just us kids and some of our cousins. And that was it. There was no car. And we didn't think anything was wrong. It was just normal. But, you know, today, if you try to tell you, Zeke, just walk to your training. And say, no, Mom, come and take me, you know. Time is different, you know. You kids get everything. But it's hard when you look back at it, but back then we didn't know any better. But you knew things like you didn't have a motor car. Sometimes you had family, you sharing the rooms, or sometimes we had to sleep in the living room because there was always family and visitors. So my older brother and myself, we more or less, we had a house, but we didn't have a bedroom because there was always family coming in and they took the bedroom. So we had to sleep in the living room. And it's a bit cold and sometimes you're on the sofa or on the floor. But again, we didn't think it was hard times at that time. So it's only hard when we look back. Back then, it was just normal. Going to school in the mornings, I tell you, we were just wet. I don't know why we didn't have a raincoat or an umbrella. It wasn't Mum's fault. We were boys. So you just got out of home and you sprinted until you got to Penrose High School. And if you're wet, you're wet. I don't remember being sick too many times, but, you know, that's just the way it was. We didn't have any money. But in school holidays, as we got older, we started to work. You know, by the time my first job was at the freezing works during the school holidays, and I was 15 years old. And you had to be 18 to work there because now you're supposed to be a grown-up man. But we lied about our age, and we got the job, and I was 15, and it was really, really hard work there. It was good money. But the work was for men, it wasn't for boys, but I suppose when it's payday, we enjoyed it, so we kept going to work. So those are some of the difficulties, but otherwise, you know, life was good. We were happy. Yeah.
Can you tell us what opportunities you received in New Zealand?
Yeah, the opportunities you have in New Zealand, you know, this thing about education, you know, it was free back then. I didn't have to pay to go to university. Your mum had to borrow, you know, all the students now have a student loan. They come out of university and they're probably owing something like $50,000 or $60,000, which they have, when they start working, they have to pay back all that money. But back in my days, a long time ago, there was no fee. You didn't pay. You just went to to university. And I know that some of my friends, they were illegally in the country, they were overstayers. And some of them got through to university with me. You know, years later, I remember I had one client later. He was an overstay and he was working at the Navy. So he got through the security system. He was working for the Navy on the base, but he was illegally in the country. Eh? So, yeah, those are the opportunities that in New Zealand, like education doesn't stop. You can just keep learning, whatever you want to learn. And in the early 70s, Penrose was the most industrial area in the country. So it meant that there were factories everywhere. So there was a ton of Tongans in the Alice area and Samoans, and they all worked in those factories in Penrose. And if you didn't like this factory, tomorrow you can start a job over here, or you can go next week to another place. There was so much work. So those are things that happened in New Zealand at that time. Those were the opportunities. The main thing is for me was the education and employment. And of course, if you got sick, they had good doctors here. And if it was serious, you went to hospital, you know that good doctors and nurses would care for you, you know, until you were well enough. Those things didn't happen in Tonga. Tonga was different. There was no jobs. There's no jobs back in Tonga at that time. Education was limited. You know, if you didn't pass from primary school to get to high school, you would finish your education at primary school. And that'll be it for the rest of your life. So Tonga was a lot tougher and very few opportunities to progress in your life forward.
Can you share with us a little bit about your life now and what you hope for in the future?
I work as a lawyer, that's my job, and I work at Community Law Centre in South Auckland. Well, that office is in Otara, and then we have our second office is in Papakura. And there's an area that we are told that this is our area that we look after the people there. So the area we work for is Otahuhu, and it goes all the way south, goes this way to Pukekohe, and over to Tuakau, and it crosses to Pōkeno, and then back north to Otahuhu. So that's called our catchment area. That means that we look after all the people there, and the criteria is that people who are on low income, meaning they don't have a lot of money, so they may be unemployed, or they may be on a pension, they're old, or maybe they're working, but they've got, you know, too much to pay, so they can't afford to pay for a lawyer. And the government believes, and it's a very good belief, that everybody in the country should have a right to have a lawyer, or like have a right to have a doctor to see you when you're sick. And the lawyer is supposed to be your legal representation. So that's what we're there for. We're there to provide legal help for all the people that need it, but they can't afford it. So it's useful. So, for example, if you have a problem with your job, and like you get sacked from your job, or you think that your boss is being unfair to you, or things like that, you can go and see the lawyer and tell the lawyer your problems, and the lawyer will speak to the boss and try to have a meeting and sort it out and represent you. Hopefully you can keep your job. Or if you're leaving, that you get enough money to leave with. You know, I'm simplifying it, but that's how it works. Sometimes it's a family problem and we have to go to family court. Sometimes it's a police problem and we have to go to the police court. Sometimes it could be a tenancy. Tenancy means rental problem with the landlord and the tenant. Then we have to do tenancy work. So sometimes it's ACC, you know, you get injured and ACC is supposed to pay you, and then ACC don't pay you, and then the lawyer will come and fight for you to try and get some money from ACC for you. So a lot of the work is immigration, because there's still a lot of our Pacific people who are lawful here. And one of the biggest cases we did was a client I had last year, 2023. And there was this big thing that happened when I was already here. I was young, maybe about 14, and they did what they call the dawn raid. And what it meant is that immigration with the police, they would come at nighttime, and they would come and enter your home to take away all the people that they thought were overstayers, illegal, and they would put them into prison, and then they'd put them on the plane and send them back to the islands. But it really, it's a bad way to do it because you're really scared. Often there's children in the houses, and the kids will get all, scared. All in the middle of the night, there's banging or the door's broken in. Sometimes they use, dogs were used. Anyway, that happened in the 70s, and that's years ago, many, many years ago. And then our Prime Minister was apologizing 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Jacinda Ardern apologized for doing all that in the islands. And then last year, I got a call from a wife who her husband was taken like that. And so they did a dawn raid. So we found out that they were still doing the dawn raid. And we fought that case, and we succeeded. We won that case. My client, I think, is already a permanent resident a resident of New Zealand now. They did this big investigation from government. So it put the dawn raid. It stopped altogether. So that's part of the work that I'm happy that we did. It was myself and some other lawyers, together we fought that case. So that's something we're really happy about. We fight for children. Sometimes a kid's expelled from school, and we think that it was, not done properly. So we'll go and fight for that kid and the family.
Yeah.
I got a case recently, and it's a kid that the school told him to shave, and he was only 13, and he just started showing some hair growth, and the school told him to shave, and the poor kid went and had his first shave, and his parents are really, really angry, and that case is not over. But the proper way is that for the school, contact the parents, have a meeting, and deal with it that way, yeah? But not for the school to just do that to a little boy at school. So we do all sorts of things as lawyers, all sorts of things. But to help, and hopefully we can succeed, because we don't always succeed. But we try our best, and I think we reasonably get a good result most of the time. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now, hoping for the future. Well, I'm going to be 65 on the 19th of September, so I'm happy that I'm going to get a pension. And then I don't feel like I'm retiring, so I might carry on going for a little while, eh?
Yeah.
Maybe till you're old and you can join me, eh?
Thank you so much, Grandpa, for taking the time to share your story with me.
Oh, you're welcome.
I really liked you told me the justice that you did as your job.
Oh, very good. Justice, that's a fancy word. Can you spell it?
Justice.
Sorry, that's J. Did you say J or G?
J.
Yeah, okay.
I hope you enjoyed our talk today, and tune in for our next talk with Philo Aholele. Malo apito toa fatu.